What most people don't know is that the Galactus trilogy was a blasphemous and demonically inspired Gnostic tale, which, like so many other Marvel stories, perverted God and exalted the devil. In 1966, the evil Galactus was portrayed as the god of the Bible, with the help of his angel, the Silver Surfer, and he threatened to destroy the Earth in yet another Armageddon-like scenario, like the Avengers Endgame, with superheroes protecting the Earth from Christ in the caricature Thanos. Silver Surfer turns against the god figure Galactus and joins the forces of the Fantastic Four to stop Galactus. In 1966, Stan Lee told his fellow comic scriptwriter and artist Jack Kirby that he wanted the villain in the story that was seeking to destroy the Earth to be God. Lee stated to the Fantastic Four, quote, "Have them fight God." And what was Jack Kirby's response? He declared, quote, "I went to the Bible and I came up with Galactus."
My stories are people's stories. And there's elements in my stories that are very, very real. And it doesn't matter what the subject is. And of course, for some reason, I went to the Bible. I came up with Galactus. And there I was in front of this tremendous figure who I knew very well because I've always felt him, and I certainly couldn't treat him in the same way that I would any ordinary mortal. And I remember in my first story, I had to back away from him to resolve that story.
Stan Lee and Jack Kirby then set out to portray God as an evil entity who destroys worlds to satisfy his insatiable appetite to feed on the life-bearing planets. Jack Kirby, who created Galactus with Stan Lee and introduced the Silver Surfer, rendered God as estranged from humanity much in the way that Lee did. While Kirby is reported to have rarely displayed much of his art in his home, it is interesting that Kirby did display at least 3 depictions of God in his home, which are quite revealing. The first of the 3 pictures by Kirby appears to be an allusion to the Book of Revelation, with God's angels bearing trumpets, which in the Book of Revelation announce the judgments and woes on the wickedness of unrepentant humanity in chapters 8 through 11. The second depiction reveals God to have his back turned on humanity, which appears as a malignant mass of chaos and perversion. The third depiction has God turned away from humanity, with humans depicted as both pleading and retaliating against God, with some even picking up rocks to throw at him. For Kirby, this all seems a bit personal, as he stated when he made Galactus, by going to the Bible, and that he had to back up from him a bit because he knew he was dealing with someone far more than mortal. Since Lee and Kirby made sure that God was depicted as the evil Galactus, gobbling up planet after planet in his quest to quench his insatiable appetite for power, who would be the superhero that humanity and even the Fantastic Four would rely upon as their savior from God? Well, that would be Satan, the fallen angel, whom the Lord God said in Isaiah 14:12, "How you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, Lucifer," in the King James Version, "Son of the dawn, you have been cast down to the earth." Jack Kirby makes it clear that the Silver Surfer was Satan, the fallen angel.
And of course, the Silver Surfer is the fallen angel. And when Galactus relegated him to Earth, he stayed on Earth. And that was the beginning of his adventures. And they were figures that had never before been used in comics. They were above mythic figures. And of course, they were the first gods. And I began thinking along those lines. And the new gods evolved from those lines. And I began to ask myself, everybody else had their gods, what are ours?
The Surfer has never been choosy. He's been more of a cult character. You know, within that universe, certain people respond. And so he was a fascinating character to begin with because in the beginning he was completely cold and learning about humanity, and then he makes this phenomenal sacrifice. He sacrifices everything, all this power, the entire universe, to help these people. You know, so he becomes a fallen angel. You know, this is a guy who had Stan's soapbox on the bullpen page. So here it was, and the first issues were double-sized, 44-page stories. So it was a 44-page Stan soapbox, essentially. You know, he got to talk about whatever was on his mind.
While Lee would portray many humans and demons and even Satan as good and as superheroes in his comics, God would become the devil. In fact, as we shall clearly see, the character that Stan Lee used to depict his favorite version of the devil in Marvel would become his personal mouthpiece to spout his anti-God Gnostic views. When answering the question as to who really is his favorite superhero, in his foreword to Marvel's masterworks Silver Surfer Volume 1, after discussing Spider-Man and his other creations, Lee declared, quote, And yet, if push comes to shove, and I really have to name the one that turns me on the most, well, I think you've guessed it by now. It just has to be that high-flying, parable-spouting, cosmic-powered, shiny dome spanner of the starry spaceways. Arguably the most unique and certainly the most soliloquizing superhero of them all, the Silver Surfer.
This character looked so heroic and so noble and so dramatic that I gave him the name the Silver Surfer. And instead of just a guy flying around finding planets, I made him a philosophical observer of the world and the universe. And I had him talk in semi-Shakespearean and biblical language, and he became my mouthpiece for how I feel about a lot of things. I told Jack I want to use this character.
Lee was so guarded about ensuring that his favorite superhero would remain his philosophical mouthpiece that for a long time he forbade anyone else to write the Silver Surfer.
I didn't want anybody to write the Surfer but me. And for a long time, I was the only guy who put the words in Norrin Radd's mouth. I liked the way Jack drew him because he looked so heroic and so noble, more than heroic. There was a nobility to him. And then I decided I want to use him in a lot of stories. And what I want to do is have him really be my voice. I want him to say all the things that maybe I've been thinking of for years.
I was a kid when the Silver Surfer first appeared. He was an incredible character, a noble creature himself. He was working for, a very hungry giant who was going to do in Earth. It was an incredible story. I always found Galactus's and the Silver Surfer's relationship really kind of strange. Here was this rather honorable and downright noble creature floating around in space on this surfboard and looking terrific, but what he was basically doing was bringing the devil and destruction to wherever he went. He was an immediate hit. Everybody just loved his character.
Just as the all-loving God who gave himself on the cross to save the world is twisted into an evil being, Satan, as Stan Lee's mouthpiece, in the form of the Silver Surfer, is turned into a benevolent being like God. Later, his origin story will be tweaked from Galactus' creation and fallen angel to Norrin Radd, an alien who rebelled against the service of Galactus after vowing to serve him for sparing his own planet. Of course, for Lee and Kirby, who created Silver Surfer, it would be years before Kirby would admit that the Silver Surfer had always been Satan, the fallen angel from the Bible. This is quite chilling when Stan Lee has stated repeatedly that the Silver Surfer is not only his favorite comic character, but served as his own philosophical mouthpiece. One has to ask the question, why does Jack Kirby not only admit that he had to back away from Galactus because he knew him, after twisting him into a planet-devouring god and portraying him as evil, and then turn around and make Satan, the one who he admits is the fallen angel of the Bible, into the Silver Surfer, the superhero? The answer to this question goes back to his childhood and an encounter Kirby apparently had with demonic powers. He stated from that time onward, he came to believe demonic entities were very real, and that the encounter had opened up his mind to them and had influenced his work ever since. When Kirby was 9 years old, his parents witnessed what they believed to be demonic possession. They believed that demonic entities had seized control of his body and were manifesting while Kirby was weak and ill with pneumonia. They summoned rabbis who came to the same conclusion. In the words of biographer Ray Wyman, in his book, The Art of Jack Kirby, after stating that Kirby's life was filled with the mysticism of faith, he states, quote, "All afternoon the rabbis worked, demanding unseen spirits to release their deadly grip on young Jack's soul." According to Kirby, the rabbis gathered around his bed and chanted in Hebrew, "Demon, come out of this boy."
Demons were real. I'm lying there on a bed. I'm a 9-year-old boy, and 10 rabbis are dancing around my bed.
Not a good sign.
And they're all saying, "Come out of this boy, demon. What's your name, demon? Don't hurt this boy, demon." The devil has been here with us a long, long time. In fact, as long as the angels and God.
Whatever one wants to make of this encounter, Kirby claimed that it was a major influence on his writing later. Indeed, no one in comics did more to influence countless youth into the occult worldview and made the demonic realm more acceptable and accessible in the counterculture revolution than Jack Kirby. While the Silver Surfer became Stan Lee's satanic mouthpiece, it seems that Jack Kirby became a mouthpiece for legions of demons. Author and Kirby fan Jeff Olson states that he believes Kirby's illness and exorcism experience was his shamanic initiation, which cracked open his creative unconscious like an egg and allowed a bottomless pantheon of superheroes, supervillains, sidekicks, monsters, and freaks to flow freely from his pencil. Olson goes on to state that his, quote, 4-decade output has become Hollywood's version of Blood Diamonds, from which he states the majority of comic to film superheroes, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the Fantastic Four, X-Men, the Hulk, and Spider-Man originally sprang. While Kirby got physically better after the attempted exorcism, he became only sicker and more twisted spiritually as he became a channel for the demonic powers that would later use him to blaspheme the Creator in the form of Galactus and glorify Satan through the Silver Surfer. Kirby's work would be the catalyst that would introduce millions of impressionable youth to both old and new demon gods. After the demonic experience that he admitted had a huge influence on his writing career, he went to DC Comics, where he created superheroes like the Demon, where in Etrigan, the demon is the son of Belial, a term used in the Bible meaning worthless, which later became personified as Satan in both Judaism and Christianity.